All right, we are live. Hello, my friends. Good to see you. Good to see you for a live stream today. You guys remember back when I started this channel, I made a promise to you. I said if we can grow this channel and we can get people to watch the videos and grow, then once these midterms started to come up, we would be heavily involved in that. So it is my pleasure today, my friends, to bring you a Senate candidate from Ohio, Mr. Chris Volpe. What's up, buddy?
How's it going? Good morning
It's
or
good
afternoon, wherever you're at.
morning. Still morning over here, just barely. I am 2 hours behind you, so still morning. But Chris, you're running for Senate in Ohio for, from my understanding, JD Vance's old seat.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a special election coming up in 2026. So, JD Vance was our senator. He served 2 years. Now, obviously, is vice president. And so, our governor, DeWine, appointed John Husted in as a temporary appointment. So, John Husted is our current senator serving 2 years. And then the remaining 2 years goes up for election in 2026 here.
Oh, gotcha. See, I was curious about that because I did look up your senators, John Husted and Bernie Moreno. Is his seat up for grabs in this upcoming election, or?
No, so Bernie Moreno actually just won against Sherrod Brown
Um,
in 2024. So he's got his
okay.
full term.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I was just looking at that too. Is Sherrod Brown still running in this upcoming election with you? Is there still a primary? I guess is my question.
So that is one of the conversations of the moment. So I decided to run. I started thinking about running in February of this year, and then I officially filed in like the April Mayish time. And I was the first actively running Democrat in the Ohio race. And then a few months later, I think in August, I want to say, maybe September, Sherrod Brown decided to jump in after being courted by Chuck Schumer, which is a whole other conversation
Mm,
we can have if you're interested.
yes.
So currently, there are, I believe, there's still four running candidates on the Democratic side in Ohio. So there's myself, Sherrod Brown, a gentleman named Ron Kincaid, and then another person, Dakota Rose.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Ron Kincaid is not showing up on my list here, so you still got a primary to get through, is what you're saying.
Yeah, theoretically.
Okay.
So I'm in the process of doing all the ballot signatures and stuff to get on the primary, and that will be early May. I think the 5th of May.
5th of May. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So I was looking at your web page here, and it says here. I'll just go ahead and read it. That's about the easiest for me. Chris is a son of an Ohio local small business owner, teacher, healthcare professional, game developer, artist, and community industry builder. Chris is not a career politician, and he lives and struggles for his fellow Ohioans. I love this. I like to see the working class get involved in politics out there. A lot of people tell me to run, but I feel like I don't have the temperament. I'm standing on a stage with
Yeah, I've heard you
you
say that
know
before.
yeah. Who's my district for Congress? It's Gabe Evans. If I was standing on a debate stage with Gabe Evans just lying to my face, um, I would probably just lose my shit. Like, why are you lying to my face? But you,
It might
as
be an
a
asset for you these days. Who knows?
it might be if you can put on a show for people for sure. But why,
Yeah.
as a working class person, did you decide it was important for you to run for this Senate seat?
Yeah. And before I jump into that, I do want to say I think you're doing a lot of good stuff. Something we need right now is more people talking about what's happening because, as you're aware, the past decade has just been a flood of nonsense. And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to sort of stay on top of all the craziness. So I think there are many ways to be involved in the fight, as it were, without actually running. And you're
Mm-hmm.
probably getting a lot more value than you would be potentially running. So you're doing good work. But yeah,
Thank
to
you.
answer your question, so I'm always a little hesitant. It's weird. I'm always a little hesitant to call myself working class, even though I own my own business. I'm a teacher. I've got like 5 jobs. I own my own business.
Nice.
I'm a teacher. I run this video game expo that I started. It's the largest game developer expo in the Midwest. I also work one day a week at my local gym, working the front desk, mopping the floors, and cleaning up.
Mm,
But I'm in a weird space because I do have two master's degrees. Like I'm quote unquote highly educated. And so I'm always like a little hesitant because I think that there are people as much as I'm struggling trying to, for example, like rent's coming up in a few days, it's going to be tight this month again. Like there are people that are really struggling more than
Mhm.
me. And so, but really what it boiled down to is in February, I was sitting on my couch, I was watching the news, watching what was going on, and I was just like, nobody is doing anything here. Like, where is the Democratic leadership? Who's in charge of this ship? And it didn't seem
Mhm.
like anybody was doing anything. And so I never had a desire to be in politics. This is the first thing I've ever run for. I've really focused on kind of building a community and an industry around video gaming and creative technology here in Ohio. And I just started to be blunt, man. I was kind of sick of the bullshit. And
Mhm.
I was like, I want to do something where I can be an active participant in building a future, building a world I want to live in. So I started thinking about it, and it turned out there's this special election coming up, and I was like, you know what, this could be a really interesting time to jump in. No other Democrats had jumped in at that point. No one was really thinking about it. The Ohio kind of Democratic world is a little messy, we'll say. And
Mhm.
so I was just like, you know what, like if you look at a lot of the members of the Senate and Congress, like these are not the sharpest tools in the shed here, right? Like we're supposed to be sending our best of the best to Washington, and we do not currently have our best of the best. And I just started thinking, I was like, you know, I'm good at talking to people. I care about what's going on. I work every day in this economy. I know what it's like to work paycheck to paycheck. So I decided to start figuring out how to run for Senate, and whatever it is, 9 months later, here we are.
Right, right. Yeah, that's true. You know, a lot of people are struggling out there, having a hard time. Um, guess I kind of wanted to get to this point. I saw this pop up on the screen that said, "We need solutions. Let's talk about solutions." So, I mean, sort of, what is your platform like for Ohio, for working class Americans? I don't know, kind of, what are your, let's hear that, solutions to the
Sure.
paycheck to paycheck, healthcare, anything.
Yeah. Again, this sounds weird for a politician. I'm also a little hesitant to talk about platforms because I think, particularly on the Democratic side, Democrats tend to get caught in this, like, here's my 12-point plan for whatever, right? And I think it's become
Hmm.
abundantly obvious nobody cares about your 12-point plan. They want to know, what do you think? What are you going to fight for? And one of my shticks, if you will, is that I think that, particularly on the Democratic side, we can talk about solutions all day long, and I think that's great. And I see here,
Hmm.
like, not only facts, right? Obviously, like, we need to get back to sharing some sort of reality of facts. But I look at the Democratic Party, and it's like, we can talk about solutions all day long, but if nobody is willing to stand up and actually put this stuff on the floor, is willing to actually fight for these things, then it doesn't matter if you have the best solutions. Now, that being said, my big thing when somebody asked me about my platform, I was like, the way I answer that is, if I had a magic wand and could fix anything, it would be healthcare. I would implement universal healthcare overnight if I could just
Hmm.
wave a magic wand. I think that you cannot have a productive, successful society if, one, you don't have healthy people, and two, anybody can become medically bankrupt at the drop of a hat. Like you're a truck driver, right? Like all it would take is one bad accident for you to put you out, and now you're no longer generating revenue. And like that probably would have nothing to do with you, right? Like you get hit by another car or something like that. And so I think
Hmm.
we are beyond the point where we need to start implementing universal health care. The simplest solution to that's probably Medicare for all. Like that's
Hmm.
like that plan exists. Um, but one of the other things about solutions, and this is what I've been trying to talk with people, and we can go back and forth on specific issues, is for whatever reason, Americans like to believe we're the first people to ever encounter these problems. But there's a lot of solutions that already exist in the rest of the world that we can adopt. Again, universal healthcare is one of them. There's plenty of ways to implement a universal healthcare system that other countries have tried and we can learn from. Affordability is a big one. I don't know how old you are. I'm a first year millennial. I was born in 81, so I'm
Hmm.
44. Uh, the idea of purchasing a house right now it's just so out of reach that it's not even worth thinking about for most
Yeah,
people. And
completely absurd. Yeah.
yeah, and so like some solutions to that is like, one, we should not be allowing investors and VCs to buy single family homes. We should be incentivizing and investing in the creation of new homes as well as affordable housing and apartments. I don't think foreign investors should be able to buy into our residential market at all.
Mhm.
And so there's all of these things that we talk about. So I had a conversation a couple days ago, and we were talking about the homeless population. And I was like,
Mhm.
did you know that there are almost 30 vacant houses in the United States for every homeless person that we have? So just like think about that for a second. We could
Mhm.
literally give, and I'm not advocating that we just give homeless people a house, right? That's not the point of this statement. The point
Sure.
is that we have so much housing that's just sitting around doing nothing because it is owned by investment groups and venture capitalists. And for them, it's the same thing with corporate properties as well. There's giant blocks. I live in Columbus, Ohio. There's
Mhm.
giant blocks of commercial property in Columbus that is not owned by anyone that lives in Ohio. It's owned by like someone in Silicon Valley, and it just sits there because for them, they either want to get an exorbitant rate on the price or they just write it as a tax write off. So you
Mhm.
just have these vacant buildings or these underutilized buildings sitting around doing nothing. And so I'm a very systems and solutions oriented person. I'm always like, what is the problem we're trying to solve here? If the problem we're trying to solve is to get people into housing and be able to offer them affordable options to live, we ain't doing that great. If our goal is to allow VCs and corporations to make tons of money by just grabbing up housing, then we're doing great. But I do not think
Right.
that's what I don't think that's what we want in a society, right? So those are a couple things. Education. I don't know about where you are, but in Ohio, education is just getting slaughtered right now.
Mhm.
We passed a House bill in Ohio that just it's going to decimate our educational system. It's really gross, to be honest, what's going on. But yeah, those are a couple of options. I'm happy to talk about any specific thing. I'm trying to keep up with the chat, but you got a lot of chat coming
Yeah.
through here.
Yeah, we'll definitely set aside some time at the end, guys, to go through some questions that maybe we might have missed. But to your point about the healthcare, for me, it's not even a bad accident. It's missing the step, getting out of the truck, fall off out of the damn truck, and then I'm injured. I'm out.
Yeah.
But
Do
you
you
brought
have
up an
healthcare
interest.
through your?
No, I haven't had healthcare for years. I'm self-employed on both fronts as far as
Okay.
YouTube and the trucking part. So trying to go out, to I think it's called the marketplace to get healthcare for a family is like, my God, there's no money left by the time you get healthcare. So
Yeah,
I
there's
haven't.
these SOCA plans that you can get, but those are probably, I mean, with the cuts to Medicaid and all the stuff going on
Mhm.
right
Yeah.
now, like a lot of these, because I'm the same way. We got for Multivarious, my video game company, the first thing I did before I brought anyone on was made sure we had full benefits, and we've been
Mhm.
fortunate to be a part of this. They're like these cooperative co-op kind of things where you can kind of pool together with other businesses to get affordable health insurance. But if things keep going how they're going, we could be seeing our rates increase by anywhere from it's like
It's
40 to 130%. I was just
yeah,
like,
it's
I can't afford that.
It's absolutely absurd. Yeah, I haven't been able to afford healthcare for a while, and then you bring in all these what is it? The Obamacare. What's the word I'm looking for? Subsidies
The
or whatever
subsidies,
that
yep,
they're getting rid of in the big beautiful bill and all that. And it's
yeah.
just devastating to so many Americans out there that I get to the point where I don't even understand what the healthcare industry's plan is because
There is
once
no
you
plan.
once you get it that expensive, we can't afford the shit anyways. What are we supposed to do with it?
I
Yeah.
think something very clear. There is no plan for this, right?
No.
So, like the subsidies, for example, the Obamacare subsidies. There's a real conversation to have in there about how the subsidies are not efficient and wasteful or whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine, let's have that conversation. But the
Mhm.
next part of that conversation is, okay, well, what do you do? And what I've found is that in a lot of Republican policy making and Democratic too, like I first of all, I should be very clear. I'm running as a Democrat, but like I am not. I have no loyalty. Like I don't owe the Democratic Party anything, right? I'm just
Right,
running
yeah,
as a
yeah, of
Democrat by the nature of our
course.
two-party system here. But
Mhm,
anyway, like for example, so I had a conversation about guns with a MAGA person very
mhm,
early in my campaign. And it was actually really interesting. He reached out to me on Facebook because there was an article posted about me, and we were kind of going back and forth. We had a great conversation. It was like 3 days over Facebook. Wonderful conversation. He was a really cool guy to talk to. But he kept coming back to this thing about guns. He's like, guns, it's a mental health issue. I was like, okay, well, let's assume that's true. It's actually not. It's availability is the largest issue that we have around guns. But let's just say that mental health is the issue we're having around gun violence in the United States. What are you going to do about mental health? And the Republicans have no answer to that.
Then why are we not treating that? Exactly.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like the Obamacare subsidies. It's like, okay, we'll cut out the subsidies because it's wasteful and it violates the free market principles. And we can talk about how healthcare can't function in a free market. I could talk about that for hours if you wanted. But the next question I'll always ask is, okay, we're going to get rid of the Obamacare subsidies. Then what is your solution to providing healthcare? And they don't have one. There is no plan here.
Right. And it's shocking to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my understanding is that most modern countries have some form of universal health care or Medicare for all type of thing. I don't know if I'm right about that or if there's something else to that, but how is it that supposedly the world's richest country is just unable to figure this out? There's no answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you want to know the answer? It's very simple.
Yeah.
It's just greed. That's
just greed. It's that
easy.
So
there's a bunch of people that make a dramatic amount of money in the healthcare space, and they don't want to upset the apple cart because it will impact their. And this is pumpkins. My cat showing up. It'll impact their bottom line, and I think we should be absolutely irate about healthcare because
100%. 100%.
Because we are allowing these things to happen. So when you think about the amount of money that I'm gonna put my cat down. She's been very needy lately.
The viewers love the cats around here, so if you want to hold it and show her off, that's fine too.
Okay, she'll be making a return, I guarantee. But when you talk about the money, for example, that the healthcare industry makes. What you also have to realize is that every dollar that goes into healthcare insurance profits is a dollar not being spent on care in our system. It's literally just being siphoned out of our system for no reason. And again, I'm not anti-business. Like I own several businesses. I've helped hundreds of businesses start and grow and be successful over the years. Like I think business is really cool and interesting, but you also have to be realistic that like, why should we be propping up health insurance companies at a federal level if literally all they're doing is acting as a middleman and they're siphoning profit out of our system, out of our pockets.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, you brought up a point earlier you kind of brushed on that I wanted to touch on a little bit was sort of, I don't remember how you worded it, but there is sort of a feeling amongst registered Democrat voters that the Democrat Party isn't necessarily always standing up for us. I'm not going to go in hard on Chuck Schumer on this particular case, but we run into that a lot where it's like, what are you doing? Why are you not standing up for the American people? And I think that contributes a lot to the low approval ratings of the Democratic Party. So you, Chris, how are you going to stand up for us? How are you going to, help the American people? Because we're all kind of sick of that.
Yep. I think you have hit the nail on the head, as it were. One of the things that I've talked to particularly Democratic people a lot about is I'm like, guys, there are real legitimate concerns that Republicans and MAGA people have. And those concerns were ignored for a long, long time. And that allowed somebody like a Donald Trump to come in and become the standard bearer of them. On top of that, you have to realize that the Democrats are responsible for some of this, like a lot of these free trade agreements, a lot of the offshoring of manufacturing, even healthcare. Like, okay, Obamacare got passed, but Obamacare, you probably don't remember. I was actually in grad school for healthcare while it was being passed, and it originally started out as maybe an attempt to do universal healthcare. And then the Democrats themselves, in a circular firing squad, cut themselves out from underneath them. And so it went from universal health care into a public option, and then it went from a public option, and they just kept getting cut down into what in essence is a set of insurance reforms. That's what Obamacare is. Like, it's not an
Mhm.
actual health insurance plan.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel when we start to get somewhere with the Democrats, then it's uh it's almost like they retreat a little bit and say, "Oh, you know what? We didn't mean that. We can come back a little bit and sort of compromise." I want to see a little bit more of like, did I fucking stutter? I said what I said. I
Yeah.
meant what I meant. And I'm
Totally.
not sure if I'm putting that in the right words, but sometimes it's like you watch what's going on. Well, maybe I got this wrong with the last time with the government shutdown. I felt a little bit betrayed when we came out and we voted to reopen the government. I was proud of the Democrats for standing their ground, and
Yep.
I could be reading the whole thing wrong. I am just a simple truck driver, but in that moment, I made a video. I was pissed off. I said, "This is why people come to me and say, well, both parties are the same, because we shut the damn thing down for what 40 days."
Yeah.
And
Almost 40
from
days.
from what I from what I understand is we didn't really accomplish anything. I mean, until you start to look at the other stuff that happened after. Mike Johnson reopened the House. We got Adelita Grijalva in there, but he was basically supposed to do that anyways, from my understanding. And maybe you understand that shutdown a little different from what I do. Maybe you're a little more because you're a little more involved with these things. But a lot of Democratic voters felt like, hey, you just caved on us again. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think of all that?
I am 100% with you. So I think there's two sides to this piece of bread, as it were. The
Mhm.
first is that real people were suffering, and including me. So, for example, my business was trying to do some SBA approvals for business funding, and I haven't even heard back. Like, my application was in, over a month ago, and I have no
Mhm.
idea if we qualify for any of this funding or anything because the SBA is such a hot mess. And then, of course, you have SNAP and other issues. So there are real people being hurt, and so that one justification is let's open the government up and
Mhm.
reinstate those services, and then we can do the fight, right? But then, like
Mhm.
we've been talking about, what is the next part of the conversation, which is, well, what is the fight going to be? And
Right.
I don't know if you know Jessica Tarlov. She's on the Fox 5. She did a podcast with, I'm totally blanking on it, but it doesn't matter. And she told a story about how she was talking to some of her colleagues at Fox News about the shutdown.
Mhm.
And she was talking about some of the ways and the strategies for the shutdown, and her colleague was like, we don't care. I'm like, what do you mean? She's
Mhm.
like, we don't fucking care, because we know the Democrats are going to cave. They will eventually cave. So
Right.
for us, we'll just wait it out. Like, the Republicans are like, we'll just wait it out because we know they will cave. And I think ultimately that is what is so frustrating about the Democratic Party, is that, like, hey, if we supposedly have the better values and we're the quote unquote, more like policy wise, we're the smarter people policy wise, and then why do we keep losing? Like, why can we not fight for these values? So you asked
Mhm.
me, like, one of the things that I'm going to do, and I don't think that we can actually make any real positive change if we do not have people willing to step out on the floor and really push these things. Like, again, you can talk about the best policies all you want, but if no one's willing to take it, grab it, and take it to the floor, who the hell cares, right? And I think that
Mhm.
that's what's really frustrating. Again, I'm 44. I've been voting Democratic for pretty much all my life, and I've consistently been disappointed by the Democrats and getting things through. And it's one of the reasons I'm running, because I just
Mhm.
I don't want to do this anymore. And I talk to a lot of younger people who are also in the same boat, where they're just like, we're not doing this anymore. We are not going to pretend that when the Democrats get into power, they're somehow going to solve all these problems. And then what always ends up happening is, like, this is a cycle we've been in for 40 years. Republicans come
Mhm.
into power, they screw everything up, they make stuff a disaster. The pendulum
Mhm.
swings to the Democrats. The Democrats come in, they spend the first 2 or so years cleaning, quote unquote, cleaning up the mess. And then when they have an
Mhm.
opportunity to do really transformational stuff, nothing happens.
Nothing gets
And
done.
I talk
Yep.
to a lot of Democrats, a lot of people in Democratic politics, and it's just like, well, we have the filibuster, and then we're going to have to make sure that we can get things through committee. And I was just like, the Republicans don't seem to have any trouble with this stuff. They don't seem
Mhm.
to have trouble getting these things through. So
Well, because
why
they don't
is
give
it?
a damn. You know?
Yeah, but and I'm not saying we should just like vacate the Constitution and the law, but
Mhm.
at the end of the day, results I think oftentimes are what matters. Let me go off on a little aside. This is kind of
Yeah.
something I've been thinking about. So Kamala Harris just released her new book. I haven't read the book, but I've watched a couple interviews about it. But in there, and I've seen her in interviews, she talks about how she was constantly like kind of cut off from Biden's team as well as some of the, like the national Democratic leadership, and it made it very difficult for her to run her campaign, and that's one of the reasons that contributed to the loss. And I was like,
Mhm.
okay, so strategically that makes a lot of sense, right? That all of these little things are getting in the way of her being able to be successful. Makes total sense. But then the
Mhm.
next question I have to ask is, well, maybe you shouldn't be president then. If you can't get your party together and backing you and like kicking these people to the curb when they're causing this bullshit, then maybe you shouldn't be president. And I think that's
Sure.
one of the things, like as bad as Donald Trump is in many, many, many ways, he has been able to consolidate a system around him. Now that system just happens to be completely corrupt and atrocious, but
Yes.
but I think that's what happens or what's happening with the Democratic Party. So let me ask you, for example, like who is
Mhm.
in charge? Who's in charge of the Democratic Party right now?
I mean, in theory, it's supposed to be, Chuck Schumer and what's his damn name over on the House
Hakeem
side,
Jeffries.
Hakeem Jeffries, right? And you know, Hakeem has some moments where he appears to be a leader
Mm-hmm.
every once in a while, but not consistent enough. And then, like Chuck Schumer right now thinks it's enough to just say "fuck" every once in a while into a camera and show us that he's standing up for us. But real leadership right now, I would lean towards like AOC, Jasmine Crockett types
Okay.
as people showing leadership.
Okay. So that is I think, a well thought answer in a roundabout way to answering the question of there is no leadership, right?
Yep, you're right. You got me there. I can't argue with that. Yes,
And so
actual
and so
leadership. You're right.
and so the thing I've told Democrats, like Democratic voters, is like you should be irate at the Democratic Party. The fact
Mm,
that they have put you in this position where there is no leadership is an absolute travesty. Like, could you
mm.
imagine a big company like Apple or Microsoft not having a CEO for 2 years? Like, that's ludicrous. Like,
Right.
why does the Democratic Party, which is a multi-billion-dollar and I would argue global organization, why do they not have a pipeline for finding and promoting leaders?
Hmm.
It's ridiculous that that's the case. And I see that like there's no mentorship in Ohio right now for helping find new voices and get them into the space. So I don't want to sound like too much of a negative Nancy here, but it is sort of a.
No.
I think it's important for us to acknowledge where we are as a party if we're going to be making serious moves forward.
Well, and that's kind of the biggest thing right now, is we do feel like there's not great leadership. We feel like the Democrats fold quite a bit. And I saw a comment. I put it up on the screen. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it again. I put it up on the screen for a minute just to sort of acknowledge it, but it said basically we don't need a new Democratic Party. We need new Democrats. We need people willing to stand up. Like I haven't had a
Yep.
chance to talk to her, but I'd love to. Like Kat Abigazale, she's out there getting
Yep.
thrown on the ground by ICE agents, out there putting her ass on the line to participate in these protests.
Yep.
And I mean, it's just things like that we don't see. You're not going to see, Chuck doing that for us. No, I think I've made that point so many times on this channel. Like we
Yep.
have the opportunity, and maybe I'm saying it the wrong way, but to grab the Democratic Party and drag it to the left, kicking and screaming if we have to. And what I mean by the left is like healthcare, empower the unions,
Sure.
stronger minimum wage, shit like that.
Yep.
So yeah, I had a question, and I got to be honest with you, Chris, I forgot what it was.
That's all right. We
But
got plenty of time.
Yeah, we definitely do. Have you seen anything? Here we go. This is so important. I wanted to ask you this also, but I wanted to kind of zero in on a very important politic with the Democratic voters right now, and that's APAC money in particular. Where
Sure.
you at on that?
Personally or in general? So I don't take any lobbyist money. So
Mhm.
uh, that answers that question pretty quickly. I think
Yeah,
that the
takes care of that.
I think the money in politics. Let me tell you an interesting story. This is about 2 months ago. I went to this politics. Pumpkin, you are driving me crazy here. I went to this politics meeting. It was like a politics and pints beer thing, and it was hosted by WOSU and local radio station here. And I went up to ask a question. I wasn't planning on asking a question, but they did like a Q&A period, and I asked a question because they started the thing out that Sherrod Brown had just jumped in, and they said that the stage had been set for the Senate. And so the question I asked is, well, it sounds like you said the stage has been set, that you're saying John Husted and Sherrod Brown, and they're like, yeah, they're the only legitimate candidates. I was like, well, I'm running for Senate. Do you want to guess what the first question he asked me was? How much money
What's
have
that?
you raised?
Yep, that's
And I was like,
and
does that matter? And people in the audience, you could tell, were pissed off that that was the question. They're like, does that matter? And the guy's like, yeah, it matters. You can live in a fantasy world. I was like, dude, you're a journalist. Your job is to be providing insight and information and opportunity to Columbus and Ohio voters so that they can hear these voices. Your job is not to gatekeep based on who you think is raising enough money. And so
Mhm.
I think the money in politics is a very, very big issue. Citizens United is something that I would actively work to get rid of. I know it's gone through the Supreme Court, and so there's some issues there. But I don't know if you followed the Montana um, money politics thing.
I have not. Feel
Okay,
free to explain.
so I would check this out. I think you can make an interesting video out of it. So since our elections are done at the state level, uh, and this is being spearheaded by Montana of all states, if you can believe it. They're
Mhm.
looking at being able to stop Citizens United at the state level. So they have created a referendum in which corporate money, dark money, that kind of stuff would not be allowed to be given to candidates through the election systems within the state. And so I
Oh.
think we might be able to stop Citizens United if we can't get rid of it at the federal level. There's this referendum which could eventually broaden out into a consortium of states that would prevent Citizens United from functioning the way it does. So I would definitely do a little research on that. It could be a interesting topic for your audience.
Yeah, definitely something I need to look more into for sure. Because I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Citizens United myself. I'm always too busy driving that damn truck to get into much deep
Yeah,
dive
keep your
stuff.
eyes on the
But
road, man.
yeah, that's what they that's what they want me to do. So yeah, I was looking at that though, and I don't know how up to date the information I have is, but for Sherrod Brown, it's showing something like $6 million
So he ended
raised.
up getting, yeah, he ended up raising like $5 million in the first week.
Hmm.
And here's the thing, like my battle in the primary is against Sherrod Brown. Like the reality of the situation is, I'm a new voice. I
Hmm.
need support and I need funding to be able to battle this. But
Sure.
also traditional established Democrats, I think, to be blunt, they just piss money away. These like really
Hmm.
just ineffective campaigns. You mentioned somebody like Kat, Zohran Mamdani, like really good about using social media in ways where you get earned media and you don't have to spend a ton of money on it.
Hmm.
I'm going to have to beat Sherrod Brown in the primary. And one of the things that I've been talking about is like, look, I don't have anything against Sherrod Brown. I think he's a good guy. I know his daughter. I think he's done a lot of good things for Ohio, but we are clearly in a different political environment right now. And
Hmm.
I do not believe that Sherrod Brown is the leader that we need at this moment. And I have told my team that if anybody from day one, I told my team, if anybody jumps into the Ohio Senate race that I think would be a great candidate, I will step away immediately. And
Hmm.
Sherrod Brown entered, and I didn't step away, not because I think, I need to be senator, but because I just don't think Sherrod Brown is the kind of person we need. And you've brought this up a couple of times, but Sherrod Brown is 73 years old. There, almost everyone in the Senate and in Congress, with some exceptions like your AOCs and whatnot, but
Mhm.
like they're not living in this economy. They don't know what
Sure.
it's like to work paycheck to paycheck. Like when is the last time Sherrod Brown has had to worry about paying his rent or covering groceries? Right?
Right.
Like
Right.
they just don't understand what it's like to live in this environment. And so I think that there is a need for change, and there is a need for people that are going to go to Washington with the sole intent of making life better for all of us. And that is all I'm doing. Like I am here because I want to make a better future for all of us. I'm a pretty sharp guy. I'm a quick study, and there's very few people that can outwork me.
Yeah, fair. I like the idea of younger candidates in general. I want you to live with the policies that you voted for or that you voted against. When you're one foot in the grave over there, not having to deal with the consequences of whatever bullshit you're doing, that's kind of
Totally,
that
totally.
bothers me. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in younger candidates, and especially from the working class, the people that have struggled paycheck to paycheck, is super important to me. I want you to understand where I'm coming from. And with that said, I know that Ohio is, pretty rural. You got some bigger cities out there for sure, but the Democrats, I don't know if it's failure of messaging by the Democratic Party or more that we live in a Fox News bubble, unfortunately, but we fail to reach a lot of rural and working class America. What do you got to say to them? How are you going to help them out, Chris? The farmers out there, the factory workers. I'm sure we probably covered some of it, but sell them on why you're their guy.
Totally. So I'm one of those people that I do not believe in this right left dynamic. I think it's nonsense, and I think it's a marketing message that our political parties have cultivated to, in essence, to stay in power. That
Mhm.
they need folks to be scared and to feel like the other side is the enemy. And I talk to a lot of Republicans and MAGA Republicans, as well as lefties over here, and I hear the same issues. Like everybody is trying to do the same thing. And I'm a really big believer. I think people in general just want three things. One is they want to know that their family and themselves are going to be safe and healthy. Two is they want to do meaningful work and know that they're going to have, some stability in their life. And then I think the third is they just want to be left the fuck alone. Like it's not
Yeah.
real complicated. And
Yes.
so and so I think that when you talk about, well, what are you going to do for rural people as opposed to suburban people or whatever, like for example, I keep going back to healthcare for a second, but like if you were to move your premiums from, a family of four is going to be spending somewhere between, depending on the plan they have, somewhere between $2,000 to $4,000 a month in premiums,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that is $24,000 to $48,000 that is going into their family premiums. And if they're not directly paying it, then it's being paid in part by the business. And I want you to remember that anything the business pays on your behalf is your salary, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if you had universal healthcare coverage and you didn't have to pay any of that, I just put $2,000 a month back in your pocket, right?
Right.
Then
Right.
you start thinking about, okay, well, what about something like early child care? One of the biggest things that prevents families from going and potentially getting a second job. Let's say you have a mom and a dad, someone has to stay home taking care of the kids because
Absolutely. Yep.
childcare is so expensive. If you start offering opportunities for early childcare, you've now opened up the ability for the family to make a choice on, do I stay home with my children or do I go work full time or part time? You've given them that option, right? Same
Mhm.
thing with education. If you put young people in a position where they can get access to a 4-year college or vocational school and they walk out with no student loans, you now have set that person up for success in the earliest years when their dollars matter the most, right? When I
Mhm.
graduated from OSU after 13 years, again, I've got a bachelor's and 2 master's degrees. Dude, I had almost $200,000 in debt. It took
Yeah.
me a long time to pay that off. And I ended up working, when I said I teach, I'm a teacher. I work a full time teaching load in addition to my other work. And part of the reason I did that, one, I needed the money, but two, that allowed me to qualify for the PSLF student loan forgiveness, which requires you to work full time for over 10 years. So it took me probably about 13 years to qualify for that, to get that student loan forgiveness. So like we are saddling younger people with this tremendous amount of debt. We're
Hmm.
putting them in a situation where if anything goes wrong at all, they stumble, they may never recover from it. So I think that, like, in essence, to answer it is like, let's start fighting poverty and let's start building up a foundation that people can spring off of to be successful. But then the second part of that, I think, is really important, because there are specific issues within the rural communities that are different than other parts of the state. For example, the tariffs, for example. I mean, we need to get this blanket tariff thing is just killing farmers, killing
It
farmers.
is.
It's killing importers. And I'm not being hyperbolic here. Like, it literally is destroying the farmer's ability to even function. So getting rid of that, if we can reshore some manufacturing, that sounds great. But I think the reality of the situation we're in is that we're never going to be able to reshore manufacturing into the way it was in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's just the
Yes, thank
reality
you.
of it.
Yes.
Like, we just need to acknowledge that. So then the solution to that is start establishing meaningful trade deals that are going to allow us to get what we need from the manufacturing to begin to do our own product production. So goods and services, software, design, stuff like that. I mean, even again, I'm a video game developer, right? The entertainment industry is really important.
Mhm. Yes.
But start providing avenues so that farmers, machinists, truck drivers, like, can get access to the materials that they need to function without these ridiculous expenses on top of them. And then I also think that I've mentioned this before, but like, housing is obviously, like, we need to do something about housing. So I
Mhm.
think there's a lot of things that we can do that would universally help everybody. And then there's specific things that we can do to help, rural people in particular.
Yeah, that's one of the things I talked about recently, and I thought I sounded a little crazy as it came out of my mouth, but I was talking about this weird desire, and I mean, the whole thing's bullshit with tariffs are going to bring back manufacturing, which is basically what
Yeah.
you touched on there. But this desire by so many Americans to bring back manufacturing, I guess similar to how they do in China. Like, I don't know about you, Chris, but I don't personally want to stand there all day and sew together Nikes. Sounds horrible. But we've got so many industries in America that we are good at: the entertainment, the movies, TV shows, video games, like you mentioned. Are you still there? Yeah. Okay. You look
Yeah,
like
I'm
you
still here.
froze up for a second. Okay. And you mentioned video games, hospitality, tourism, technology. Donald
Yep.
Trump basically just acknowledged that we have an education problem in this country, and he says, "Oh, we need to, reinstate these H-1B visas." Why are we choosing to lean into sort of, I don't know, antiquated industries like making socks and sweaters when we've got so many things we could be leaning into that we do well? If we just educate our people and lean into those things.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think some of this has to do with you said antiquated. We have this
Hmm.
antiquated mentality about work, right? Some of it's part of the, like, laissez-faire, trickle down economics thing, where it's just like
Hmm.
everything will just take care of itself, right?
Hmm.
And I hate painting with a broad brush here, but I think this is also a very, like, baby boomer mentality, because they grew up in a time where the stage was set for them to allow these things to kind of spring up. So, like, imagine, like,
Hmm.
there was a garden that was created and they were allowed to enter this garden, and they had all the tools and the resources to make stuff within this garden. We have not been properly tending our garden for the past 20, 25 years, really the past kind of
Hmm.
like 40 years.
Yeah.
And what this does is it creates a system where, like, we just expect that progress will happen, like, as it has in the past. We expect that new companies will be able to develop and create new products, and we expect that technology will solve all of our problems. And the reality is that's not how life works. And we've seen that with China. China, for all of its faults, and I'm not pro China in many, 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 many ways.
Hmm.
However, they have been very clearly creating a plan, a multi generational, multi decade plan for how they can become the economic powerhouse of the world.
Hmm.
And you can only ride on good vibes and everything will work out for so long, because as soon as it starts to fall apart, and I think you and I share this concern that we might be on the verge of, if we're not already well into it, that things are falling apart. Once things start falling apart, it's really hard to get them back again. Do you think China, if China gets complete control over, let's say, so they already have big control over technology, manufacturing, supply chains. Let's say they grab a couple other industries. Do you think they're going to give those up?
No,
Like,
well,
absolutely not.
absolutely not. No.
They are going to use that to bend us over a barrel and force us into trade decisions that they want. So, for example, this is one people don't think about, but China has been outfitting Africa with electrical and internet infrastructure for decades, right? And so, besides just being like, oh, China's really nice, thank you, Africa is now tethered to them in a business and cultural relationship in a way they're not tethered to the United States. And that kind of forward thinking is really important, because China's doing a little bit of investing in Africa in exchange for the hope that over the next couple of decades or 100 years, that they're going to get a lot of economic viability out of that, right? What are we doing right now in the United States? We're covering everything. We're just coming all on home, right? We're pulling all of our foreign investments, and think about like USAID and things like that. We are becoming this nationalist company, or a nationalist country, and we are burning our allies and friends in the process.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you know this. I have a ton of Canadian viewers, because every time Donald Trump does some crazy shit with Canada, I tend to cover that. But what I hear from a lot of the Canadian viewers is like they're done with the United States after, of course, it was the tariffs, but more importantly was the threats to turn Canada into the 51st state, which obviously pissed off a lot of Canadians. But when you think about that, the relationships that have been ruined through Donald Trump's policies, I think we're touching on the same point, is just the rest of the world leaving America behind at this point. You know, when Donald Trump decides to start a trade war with goddamn soybeans. I mean, yeah, soybeans are like a necessity, but they grow out of the ground. And countries like Brazil and Argentina also have ground and soil. It's just not an effective weapon in a trade war, is the point I'm trying to make. So China goes to Brazil, Argentina, and they left the American farmers behind. They said, we have other options here. And I don't know exactly where I was going with that, but like we basically isolated ourselves from the world. And it's going to take years, if ever, to fix these trade relationships we had less than a year ago.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think I'm a pretty optimistic guy. I may not sound like it on this podcast, but I'm a pretty optimistic guy, and I actually do think we have a lot of really exciting opportunities to build a future that, you know, maybe we could be talking on this podcast 10 years from now and look back and be like, man, look at what we were able to accomplish, right? But it's going to require us to roll up our sleeves and do a lot of hard work, because right now, to your point, I think we're at least a generation, if not two, of having to rebuild our relationships with the rest of the world. Like, you know, you got a bunch of Canadians on here, like, I don't know, type 1 in the comments if you're going to trust the United States again for a long time, right?
Oh,
like,
we're not gonna see any ones in that comment section.
Yeah, if you're not going to trust us for a long time, put 1 in the comments. Like, these countries are just not going to trust us to uphold our word, and it's really unfortunate, and it's unnecessary. Like, all of this stuff that is happening is so unnecessary.
Yeah, completely, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely have that situation. But I wanted to touch on the point, because I sound like I'm very pessimistic a lot of times too. But in that, there is some optimism that I think there is opportunity for us to actually run on a platform that makes sense to the American people, follow through with the things we say we're going to do. And for me, I am a registered Democrat. I've never been the guy that shies away from that and goes, no, I'm an independent and all that shit. I want to see the Democratic Party do better, have an actual platform, and start taking care of the American people. So where Donald Trump and the Republicans right now have failed in that aspect by telling everybody a bunch of shit they wanted to hear and
Yeah,
then robbing them blind as soon as they got into office, that
totally.
does present huge opportunity for the Democratic Party if they want to take it.
I agree. One of the things that I it's really easy right now to get so angry and frustrated if you're somebody on the left with Republicans, family, friends, and whatnot. But the thing
Mm,
I try to remind people is that Donald Trump is a con man and a liar, and there are a lot of people that have been taken in by it. They've been snookered, right? And that doesn't mean that we should just keep letting things happen as they happen, but it does mean that we need to understand that there's a lot of people that are not inherently bad people. They've just been tricked. And
mm,
you mentioned, you're out there driving your truck, right? The vast majority of people are not paying attention to the news every day, right? They hear a little snippet here or there, and that's what gets kind of incorporated into their mind. And so this kind of hits on what you said before, and I've seen it in your chat. There's a big marketing problem. Yeah, we do need to remind people that, like, hey, you have been lied to, and we are here to help you out, right? And this is something
mm,
I say on my campaign is like, look, man, I'm not trying to convince you of anything, okay? I'm not even trying to convince you to vote for me. What I am saying is that I think we can do some really exciting things together. I am asking you to trust me. And if you
mm,
can trust me, even that we're not going to agree on everything, but if you can trust me that I'm going to have your back, then I do think we can do some amazing things. And if for whatever reason you can't trust me, that's okay too. But that's sort of the basis of my campaign. Is like, look, I'm just here to try to do the best I can for the people of Ohio and for America. And if you believe me and you think that I can be a positive influence in your life, like, here I am. I'm right here. But it's going to take a while to get through this. It's really, again, it's really unfortunate. And I'm sure you and many of the people in the chat are, well, we'll say maybe taking a break from some of their family members, particularly
yeah,
during the holidays, because of politics. Politics has just invaded every aspect of life. And Trump did
yeah.
this intentionally. He knew what he's doing.
Mm, mm. Yeah, what I want to do, comment section. If we've got a few more minutes. We'll go about 8 more minutes. If you've got a question for Chris that you feel like we didn't touch on, go ahead and type it in the chat. And while we wait for that to come in, um, what you were saying about, I don't remember exactly how you worded it, but there are sometimes with Trump supporters that I kind of enjoy seeing them live with the consequences of their vote. When a Trump supporter loses their job or small business, I go, yeah, dummy, you should have seen this coming. But there are the times when a Trump supporter will come to me and say, dude, I fell for it. I got tricked. And,
Mhm.
I can definitely show some sympathy to that. If they realize they got tricked, then I say, good. Now do some research, read some stuff, listen to other people, get out of your bubble.
Yeah.
There is hope, I think, for people like that. Um, but some people, it depends on the person. Sometimes it's like rub their face in it. But if they are aware that they got tricked, I think that's valuable that they heard that. Do you see any interesting questions there, Chris, or you want me to just pick some at random and highlight for you?
I'm trying to write some down as I see them, but I do want to respond to your thing. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. I've posted this on several of my social medias. Do better, right? This is a time for just all of us to step up and be better.
Hmm.
Like, that's what it comes down to. And I think that there is going to be a period of real accountability that's going to need to happen. So when people come to you, or come to me or come to others, and they're like, "Hey man, I was duped." Part of that process, that healing process, just in like any relationship, right? Like if one of your friends burned you for some reason, there's going to need to be a period where like you need to see that this person is actively working to repair that relationship, right?
Hmm.
There's going to be a lot of people that are going to need to do some self-reflection and introspection and start the process of learning and repairing that relationship. And then we also need to make sure that we're doing that as well, and that we're also not being like, I told you so, kind of thing. Because we need to be welcoming folks who are willing to make a change. I'm always a big fan of never turn an ally into an enemy. And I think that we need to be having these meaningful conversations. Real fast, Roe v. Wade, I saw that up there, and then you can throw me whatever
Hmm.
questions. I think Roe v. Wade was a very, very important a part of the cultural zeitgeist of the United States. And the fact that it is gone now is resulting in direct harm and death of women in the United States. And so I think we need to go back to having federal protections for abortion rights. I know it's a very controversial issue. I'm happy to talk about that in more depth if you want, but I just saw that
Yeah,
pop up.
the way I view the entire abortion situation, it's a medical procedure between a woman and a doctor. And for me, as a man in America, I should just mind my fucking business on that. It's not really my business.
I think that's fair.
But there's probably a more professional way to put that. But I think you can trust a woman and a doctor to make these decisions, and I have no place in that conversation. In most cases, it's not my place to discuss that. Here, what do you got for veterans, Chris? What do you think of veterans?
What do I think of veterans? So yeah, no, I think that we need to. Well, first of all, the VA, which is interesting, the VA has been taking it on the chin lately as well. Not as much as like Medicaid and stuff, but I think it is not being supported and funded in the way that it should be. And I know a lot of people complain about the VA, but if you actually look at the stats, the VA is one of the, it's like overwhelmingly positive. Like veterans love it. It's like 93% or something give it a positive review. So I think that we need to be making sure that we establish a stronger, sorry, my cat is, we need to make sure we're establishing stronger support for our veterans because we ask the most of them out of any of us, right? And then also within that, you go back to universal healthcare again, and now you've provided a whole new layer of help and support for veterans that they'll get. And then you can have the VA focus on VA specific, veteran specific mental and physical health issues. Yeah, particularly with housing, I think that that builds into part of my larger housing plan. But the VA actually, as a veteran in the United States, you do get VA loans as a housing program. I would really like to revisit that and see what other kind of benefits that we can provide. Because there's certain benefits that sound good, like 0% down payment. Like that's really cool because that can get you into a house. But the ancillary impact of that is that you might actually end up buying a house that you can't afford or it's too expensive for you. But then also you end up paying more in interest over the long run because of that 0% down payment. So I would like to revisit the interest rates for the VA mortgage program as well. But I think that there's all sorts of stuff around, like burn pits was a big one for a bit. Jon Stewart was leading the charge on that. There are specific health and wellness requirements that veterans have that normal, quote unquote, normal people are not going to have to deal with. And I think it's ridiculous, both for veterans and our public safety and public supporters. Like they should not have to be doing, if we are asking a lot of them, then we should make sure that anything that happens to them is not even a question when it comes time to taking care of them.
Yeah, let's end on this one because I think it's a little bit off, but I was kind of railing against this a few days ago in a video. Donald Trump's plan for the 50-year mortgage.
Yeah.
Now that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen to me.
Oh, totally.
Just that easy. Yeah, it's a shit show.
Yeah. So if it's such a stupid thing. It's one of those plans that like someone who doesn't know what they're talking about just throws out there because, just think of it like before we even start talking about the math of it, right? Just think about it. Okay, you're 40 years old and you're going to get a 50-year mortgage. Are you even going to be alive before that mortgage ends? Like, are you going to make it to 90? And then on top of that, the bank is like, are you going to make it to 90? Like it just all around, it doesn't make any damn sense. But then secondly, if you look at it, if you look at a standard mortgage for a $400,000 house, you're going to be spending somewhere, depending on the interest rate, obviously, somewhere between $300,000 and $350,000 on interest, right? That's a lot of, like,
Yeah.
that's almost the cost of the house in the principal in that mortgage.
Right.
You expand that to a 50-year mortgage, you've now just added another $350,000 to $400,000 of interest. So you're now paying double the amount of the principal in interest payments. And it's even worse than that because, as you know, the first portion of your mortgage is always the majority interest. So you could get through 30 years of your 50-year mortgage and own next to nothing of your house. That is a
Yeah.
complete disaster. And it's not, the whole point of giving people housing is, one, it gives them stability in their life, but it's also sort of like a retirement plan for them, right? They're earning equity in something over the time of their working years that they can then make use of potentially if they want to downsize or move somewhere else in their later years. But if you get a mortgage at 30, you sell it at 60, and you own like 8% of the value of the house, you are far worse off than if you would have just rented. You should have just gone and rented.
Right. So with that, Chris, I want to end this at an hour so that people will come in and watch the replay later. If we go
Sure.
much past that, people will not come in for the most part to watch what you have to say. So I wanted to, of course, give a thank you to you, Chris. This is my first time interviewing or having a discussion rather with a political candidate. So I'm glad I didn't completely fall apart on you guys over here trying to figure out how to do this. And thank you to all the viewers. I saw quite a few super chats come in. I appreciate your support, and thank you for stopping in to hang out with us. So however you want to end this, Chris, is all up to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I mentioned when we were in the green room that I reached out to you specifically because I watch your content and I really enjoy what you're doing, and I'm trying to find more people that I think are doing positive, constructive stuff, because the left, if you want to call it that, we're just really bad at like connecting to each other and sharing resources and networking. And I think that we should all be working together to solve these problems. And so I'm very appreciative of you having me on. And I'm happy to come on again or anything if anybody would be interested. And just
Yes.
a reminder, you can go to my website, volpeforamerica.com. All of my social medias are at Volpe for America. I really appreciate the great comments. I saw a bazillion of them. I wish that I could answer more of the questions. I saw here, don't run as a Democrat if you're not for Democrats. I am for Democrats. I just want Democrats to be better. I have been a Democrat for a long, long time, and I expect big things from them. And that's why I'm running, because I'm going to help change the party and make it into what I think it could be. But I really appreciate it. We are doing our donations and I post videos. I just got my TikTok running, so that's been fun. So feel free to leave comments on there. I'm pretty active in responding, but thank you so much again for having me. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Of course. Well, that is it, my friends. I appreciate you all stopping by. And we'll see you guys next time. Love you guys. Bye now.